Hey everyone, welcome back to the Taylor Compound. I'm John and I'm joined by Madison and Becca again today. On today's adventure episode, we're heading deep into the towering giants of Redwood National Park, a place where the ancient trees meet the rugged coastline in California. But first, let's rewind to the drive that got us here because that was a whole journey of its own.
We started this road trip from Lassen Volcanic National Park. That'll be its own episode, but it was a huge shift in scenery. One minute we were surrounded by steaming vents and volcanic rock, and then next it was just winding forest roads, pine trees, and these basalt boulder fields were everywhere.
Those boulder fields were really interesting because it's from an ancient volcano that went off and it spread thousands upon thousands of boulders right in the middle of all the fields for miles and miles. And I was thinking to myself as we drove through there, nobody has to mow their lawn here. It would be impossible.
We passed by an extinct volcano called Tuscan Butte.
This is a gorgeous cylinder cone that just rises out of the earth like a perfect volcano.
Yeah, it felt like driving through a cross-section of California with volcanic geology on one side and Cascade Range pine forest on the other.
And then we hit the coast, which was Shasta, Whiskey Town, and Highway 101.
So we made it close to Crescent City, and we ended up parking very close to the ocean on this little road that was next to the beach. And the beach and the waves were crashing about 10 feet from us. The wind was blowing, and I remember getting this eerie feeling that I felt like a tsunami was coming. And so everybody was kind of talking about that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we were making fun of you.
I know. And then, so it turns out Crescent City actually did get hit by a tsunami in 1964 after a massive 9.2 earthquake in Alaska created waves that reached 20 feet and killed 11 people right in this little town. And that stuck with me. And so, I mean, it's wild to think that I just casually parked in an area that was right exactly in a danger zone.
Yeah, Crescent City is considered a tsunami hotspot due to its location near the Mendocino fracture zone, plus the harbor's orientation and the bowl-shaped continental shelf traps tsunami waves, making the area very susceptible to tsunamis. So you were right. We made fun of you for no reason.
So we booked a KOA after that, and that felt a lot safer.
I'm not sure how safe that felt. It was still near the water. We got up early in the morning, and we left the KOA, and our goal was to go chase redwood trees, right? And so that was very exciting. Madison, you want to tell us a little bit about Redwood National Park?
Redwood National Park is 206 square miles. There is no entrance fee, so it's completely free to explore. Peak season is May through September and has over 500,000 visitors a year. It is home to the tallest trees in the world.
This park is especially unique because it's the only place in the world where coast redwoods grow naturally.
In the 18 and 1900s, over 90% of the old-growth redwoods were cut down for timber. Today, only about 5% of the old-growth redwoods remain, primarily protected in areas like Redwood National Park and Sequoia National Park. Redwood National Park was established in 1968 to protect the remaining old-growth trees. Without its conservation efforts, they would most likely be extinct today.
I don't understand how you can see something so magnificent and think to yourself, I think I'm going to cut down these 2,000-year-old trees and feel comfortable about it. I understand people need to make a living, and I honor all the people that do that type of work, and it definitely serves a purpose. But I think when you get to those trees, you have to give some compassion and say, these things have been here for 2,000 years. They're gorgeous, and we should leave those alone.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's amazing how hardy these trees are and that we still managed to destroy almost all of them. But onto one of the amazing hikes we did. We rolled through the Merlet State Wilderness and we pulled up to the Prairie Creek Visitor Center trailhead. And we were ready for our first hike into the Redwoods, or so we thought.
So how about some hike facts before we get into that, Madison?
We hiked the James Irvine Trail, which leads from Prairie Creek Visitor Center all the way to Fern Canyon. It's about a 10.5-mile hike, and I'm not exaggerating when I said I felt like we were put on a different planet. It was just gorgeous. The forest was dense, silent except for birdsong, creaking trees, and just glowing with green.
It's like a journey through 3 ecosystems. So you start in upland, old-growth redwoods, and you move through lush riparian zones with creeks and ferns. And you finally reach coastal prairie and beach at Gold Bluffs. The biodiversity shift is unreal.
And I keep thinking, how is this not more famous? You literally walk through cathedral-like groves where the trees are hundreds of feet tall and the air is thick with mist and moss, and it just feels sacred.
Here's the part that blew my mind. Redwoods absorb water through their needles. Up to 30 to 40% of their water comes from fog drips. So the fog that blankets the forest is not just a fog. It's giving them all their support.
Also a fun fact, the trail is named after James Irvine, who was a lumber baron. So it's kind of ironic how the best preserved redwood trails is named after the guy who had an industry to cut them all down.
Yeah, that is a lack of foresight right there. And you walk through trees that are 1,000+ years old. You might see banana slugs, hear a Pacific wren, or even spot a Roosevelt elk near the trailhead. Do not mess with the elk. And above you, the redwoods are so massive that they support canopy gardens. So they have ferns, huckleberries, mosses, and salamanders living in the treetops that have never come down.
And we saw most of those. So it's an interesting hike for sure.
And then you reach Fern Canyon, which is 50-foot walls covered entirely in living ferns with water trickling down. Almost looks like it's breathing. It was a filming location in Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, and honestly, it looks even cooler in person.
If you want a full loop, you can return via Miners Ridge Trail, I think it was called, which makes it about a 12-mile adventure. And fair warning, Fern Canyon usually has a stream running through it. And so there's a lot of rocks, and so you're kind of rock hopping, but you're definitely going to get wet. And just being there, though, it's definitely worth it.
So why don't we move on to talking about our experiences with this hike?
This hike sparks deep emotion, is how I would describe my experience with it. The trailhead was quiet when you first walk in. It's almost reverent, like the forest is holding its breath. As I stepped onto the James Irvine Trail, the canopy of the redwoods basically swallowed the sky. And I felt this deep, grounding calm. These trees have weathered storms, fires, and centuries. And here I was, just a moment in their timeline. With every step, the noise of the world faded, and the rhythm of the forest took over. It wasn't just a hike. It was a reset, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful places whisper instead of roar.
I felt so tiny surrounded by all those trees. I could just feel the energy throughout the forest and absorbing it all in. The whole time I was just thinking this is by far my favorite national park.
You definitely feel the age of the forest, and you can see like little universes of mini forests all over the fallen trees.
And time seems to really just stop. And so you go a few miles, you're taking your time, and you literally forget about where you're going or what you're doing, because every step you see this deep history. We finally reached Fern Canyon. And wow, coming into Fern Canyon felt like stepping into another world. The walls rose up around us, completely covered in layers of ferns, like a living, breathing green cathedral. Water trickled down the sides, and the canyon floor was mixed of creek and trail. It was unreal. I get why people say it feels like Jurassic Park, because it literally does. You half expect a dinosaur to come around the corner. It's quiet, it's wild, and you just feel so alive because everything feels alive around you. Honestly, the photos don't do it justice. You've got to be there to feel it.
We were literally tiptoeing over creek water, slipping on logs, laughing, soaked, but fully in it. It was the best kind of messy adventure. And then we hit that random little parking lot at sunset.
Before we did this hike, every single website said that it was 10.5 miles from Prairie Creek to Fern Canyon round trip. But somehow we managed to get 10 miles in by the time we reached that parking lot, which I guess was the end of the hike.
I have no idea if we missed a trailhead or we wandered around too much, but either way, it was a lot longer than we planned. And then by the time we actually made it to Fern Canyon, the sun was already setting.
I think we went past Fern Canyon, and we were supposed to turn around there because there's a hike from the parking lot to Fern Canyon that you need a permit for. And instead of turning around at Fern Canyon, we kept going, and we ended up in that parking lot.
That is exactly what happened. We just kept going straight rather than looping around.
And so that parking lot is right on the waterfront, and it's a very remote parking lot, and cell phone service does not work there. And I remember thinking, oh boy, the sun is going down, and we do not have flashlights, and there's no extra layers of clothing for the cool weather, and I could not imagine hiking back in the darkness with you two ladies. And so what did we do?
Yeah, honestly, like just the sound of creaking trees and like who knows what moving around.
In the pitch black, sounds straight up out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
So we did what any smart adventurers would do. We hitchhiked.
There was 2 men and one of their daughters, and Becca and I were too afraid to go and ask, hey, can you give us a ride? So my dad went up. He went to ask. They looked a little creeped out at first until they saw Becca and I, and they're like, okay, not a serial killer. And they were pretty happy to help us after they saw us.
Yeah, it was a rugged dirt road. I can't believe we even debated walking up the road because it was so narrow and so windy going up this mountain. And the entire time, I literally talked the entire time. I did not let there be 1 second of silence in that car because I did not want there to be any awkward silence.
Yeah, you carried the conversation in that car ride.
Redwood people are just the best.
Oh, they're just the best.
We love the forest people.
Becca would not stop talking the entire ride. It was a very canopy, rocky, narrow, bumpy road that went on for about 40 minutes with people we didn't know. And,
we got to know them.
Becca talked the whole time. Nobody got to get to know anybody. I was glad when that ride was over. They were very nice to pick us up. So if you're out there and you hear us, thank you very much. But that was a very nervous time for me, for sure. I think it was for everybody. So that's our adventure on the James Irvine hike. That was truly a wonderful hike. We kind of zoomed through it, but there were moments where big pieces of tree bark would fall off and went down hills. And I remember Madison sliding down one of those.
Got a few splinters in my butt.
It definitely looked a little bumpy for sure. I remember standing inside of some of the trees that had hollowed out areas. There were some archways that we had to go through. Do you guys remember when I cracked my head on a tree? And you
Could we forget?
Gosh, yes.
You guys were laughing. That was very painful for me.
It was a super soft dead tree that had already fallen over.
We were fine.
Yeah, you bounced right off.
We made it to the Fern Grove, which was incredible, right? And then we had a hitchhiking adventure because we thought that the hike was a 10-mile round trip and took us forever to hike 10 miles to that parking lot. But we did make it back to the visitor center.
So if you're heading to Redwood National Park, here are 2 more things beyond the James Irvine hike that you can do.
Number 2 on our list was the Lady Bird Johnson Grove Trail. It is a short hike with huge payoffs. Massive redwoods, quiet paths, and interpretive signs about conservation. It's also where Lady Bird herself dedicated the park.
Number 3 would be the Tall Trees Grove. So you need a free permit to access it, but it's worth it. Some of the tallest trees on Earth are tucked away in this quiet canyon, and the hike down and back up is a workout, but peaceful and totally rewarding.
Thanks for coming along with us on this Redwood National Park journey. To close this out, let's have some facts, some interesting facts. Let's start with Becca. Thank you.
One fun fact about redwoods is that they have some redwoods called ghost redwoods that absorb toxic metals from the soil for their neighbors around them in exchange for the sugars that they need to just survive. They act as a toxic waste bin for the other trees around them.
That is literally incredible. And I'm telling you, when you walk through this park, it literally feels like you are walking through a community of ancient people, but they're 300 feet tall. Did you have anything else to add?
In 1971, Apollo 14 went to the moon. The astronaut carried over 2,000 seeds with him, including 500 coast redwood seeds. NASA wanted to see how exposure to space would affect their growth back on Earth. When they returned, they planted these seeds all over the U.S., including the redwood seeds. They found out that they grew just as normally as trees that never left the planet. We saw one of these moon trees in Sacramento. It was interesting to see that giant tree in the city setting rather than the forest.
I've seen a couple of these trees in different cities that I've been through across the country.
Yeah, and coming back down to Earth, these trees have a lot of work to do because they are the strongest carbon sequesters. So they store the most amount of carbon per acre than any other type of tree in any other type of forest.
Redwood National Park is home to the tallest tree on Earth, Hyperion, at 379.7 feet. The location is kept secret. What do you think about that?
I wonder what it is.
Because they do not want anybody else to mess with their redwoods. And if people know where Hyperion, the tallest redwood is, people will likely try to carve their initials in there.
That's funny. Now we'll talk about things most people don't know about Redwood National Park. Redwood root systems only go down 5 to 6 feet, but they spread out 100 feet.
The trees can clone themselves via stump sprouts.
Banana slugs thrive in the forest floor ecosystem. Some redwoods survive with their tops blown off, continuing to grow.
The forest receives 70 to 100 inches of rain per year.
Salmon and steelhead trout spawn in the streams.
Endangered marble murrelets nest in the high branches of old-growth trees. And finally, top tips for visiting or hiking Redwood National Park.
Layer your clothing. Fog and chill are common even in the summer. Download offline maps. Self-service can be spotty.
Visit early morning or late afternoon for golden light and fewer crowds.
Keep a safe distance from the elk. They're wild and unpredictable.
And respect the forest. Leave no trace, stay on trails, and soak it up slowly.
Thank you for joining us here again at the Taylor Compound and for experiencing this magical national park, the Redwood National Park. From 300-foot trees to beautiful fern groves to interesting cliffs with the ocean crashing and even tsunamis. We want you to stay wild. We would love you to like, comment, and subscribe so we can continue to share. And remember, keep exploring.